Denzel Washington wasn't supposed to succeed. The painful secret behind his father's abandonment. How does a man become a legend without losing his soul? When you hear the name Denzel Washington, you might think of greatness. The Oscars, the speeches, the undeniable command every time he walks into a scene. He's the man you never see falter, never see fail, the ultimate father figure, mentor, soldier, king. But what if I told you? The man behind those unforgettable roles had spent his entire life trying to escape the shadow of someone else's pain. Before he was Denzel, the icon. He was Denzel Hayes Washington Jr., a young boy standing in the ruins of his parents' crumbling marriage, watching his preacher father walk out the door and never come back. At just 14, he learned that even the most holy of men could abandon their flock, and even the strongest of families could break. That moment didn't just leave a scar, it became the fuel for every performance he would give for the rest of his life. He didn't scream, he didn't lash out. Instead, he watched, he listened, he studied people, and slowly he built a fortress within himself, made of discipline, of focus, of silence. A fortress the world would later mistake for perfection. But the truth is, Denzel Washington is not perfect, and he's not trying to be. What he is relentless. Behind the calculated calm, the military precision, the unwavering stare was a man chasing redemption. Not for anything he had done, but for everything he was afraid he might become. A man like his father, a man who leaves. From the stage in Harlem to the set of Training Day, every role was more than just acting, it was therapy. It was confession. It was rage wrapped in poetry. He was never just playing a corrupt cop or a civil rights hero. He was performing surgery on himself. Every tear, every outburst, every quiet moment of pain was real. And then there's the irony. The world praises him for portraying broken men so perfectly, addicts, liars, revolutionaries, when in reality the most broken part of Denzel has always been the boy inside, the one still hoping that playing enough good men would somehow make the ghosts go away. So why do we watch him so intently? Because somewhere deep inside we recognize the storm he hides, and we know, even if he never says it out loud, he's not just telling a story. He's telling his story. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear next will take you deeper into Denzel's roots than you've ever gone before, from his mother's prayers to the moment he nearly gave it all up, and the truth about the role that changed everything. Before the fame, before the golden statues and roaring applause, there was just Denzel, not the legend, not the leading man, just a boy trying to survive the quiet wars of a broken household in Mount Vernon, New York. Born on December 28, 1954, Denzel Hayes Washington Jr. was the second of 3 children to Denzel Washington Sr., a Pentecostal minister, and Lennis Washington, a beauty salon owner. His parents were hardworking, devout, and proud, but their love didn't last. His father, known for his fire and brimstone sermons, was a powerful man of God, but at home, his voice often went silent. He was distant, disciplined, rigid. His mother, on the other hand, was the rock, fierce, determined, and unshakably loyal to her children. But no amount of strength could keep the cracks from forming. When Denzel was just 14, the family splintered. His parents divorced and his father moved out for good. That moment haunted him. He rarely speaks of it publicly, but when he does, there's a shift in his tone, a quiet storm. In an interview years later, he admitted, "I didn't see my father much after that." He was never abusive, but he was never around. The absence echoed louder than any words ever could. That void would shape how Denzel approached manhood, fatherhood, and even fame. After the divorce, Lennis Washington sent her son away to boarding school Oakland Military Academy in New Windsor. It was meant to keep him away from the rough streets and bad influences creeping into Mount Vernon. She feared he might go down the wrong path like so many boys she'd seen fall. For Denzel, it was a wake-up call. The structure, the isolation, the uniforms, it straightened his spine and cleared his vision. For the first time, he realized he didn't have to become what he came from. But even as he walked the disciplined path, he was still a young black boy in America, a system designed to forget or flatten boys like him. And yet Denzel wasn't content to be flattened. He was sharp, observant, and curious. After high school, he enrolled at Fordham University. His initial plan, journalism. He had a way with words and an eye for the truth. But while attending summer camp as a staff member, he participated in a talent show, and something shifted. A colleague saw it immediately and told him, "You have something. You should act." It was more than a compliment. It was a calling. From there, he pivoted. At Fordham, he began studying drama and theater. He performed in campus productions, discovering a love for Shakespeare and August Wilson. After graduation, he continued honing his craft at the American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. Unlike many aspiring actors, Denzel didn't chase fame, he chased discipline. He didn't want to just be on stage, he wanted to master it. And he did. Whether it was his early stage work in The Emperor Jones or Othello, or his TV breakout role on the medical drama Saint. Elsewhere, where he played Dr. Philip Chandler from 1982 to 1988, Denzel didn't act, he transformed. Audiences could feel the intensity, the weight, the gravity. Every role he took had purpose, precision, and power. But it wasn't just talent that separated him from the pack, it was the man he was becoming off-screen. While rising through the ranks of Hollywood, Denzel held on tightly to his faith. He attended church regularly, tithed, and often sought spiritual advice before major life decisions. Unlike many of his peers, he didn't get lost in the glitz or temptation. He got married early, an unusual move in the entertainment industry. In 1983, he wed Pauletta Pearson, an accomplished actress he met on the set of the television film Wilma. She saw something in him, not just potential, but a sense of purpose. Together, they built something rare in Hollywood, a real family. They raised 4 children, John, David, Katia, and twins Malcolm and Olivia, away from the chaos of celebrity life. He taught them to work hard, keep their heads down, and serve others before serving themselves. Even as he became one of the most bankable stars in the industry, he insisted on driving them to school, showing up for games and recitals, and being present. Because Denzel never wanted to repeat the cycle of absence. But even as he nurtured his family, he never forgot where he came from. He donated millions to historically black colleges and churches. He returned to his mother's old salon to surprise her clients. He spoke at graduation ceremonies, prisons, and youth centers, not to boast, but to remind young black men that greatness is possible even from the darkest corners. Still, even legends have quiet battles. Denzel wrestled with the pressure of perfection, the weight of being the responsible black actor in a world hungry for scandal. He didn't drink heavily or lose himself in drugs, but the emotional cost of carrying generations of trauma through every role he played. That weight doesn't show up in headlines. It shows up in his eyes. And yet he carried it. For the boy he once was. For the man he refused to become. For the legacy he knew he was building every single day. He has always said, "My faith makes me who I am. I'm just an instrument." But if that's true, then God chose a rare one. Hollywood. He was a man on a mission. And that mission wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about truth, about dignity, about redefining how black men were seen on screen. While the industry was still handing out stereotypical roles, thugs, sidekicks, victims, Denzel chose differently. He wasn't going to be a caricature. He wasn't going to sell out. From day one, he demanded depth, demanded complexity, demanded humanity. And Hollywood quickly learned that when Denzel Washington walked into a scene, the rules changed. His first real breakout moment came in the TV series Saint Elsewhere, 1982 to 1988. As Dr. Philip Chandler, Denzel played a young, intelligent, confident black surgeon, something rarely seen on television at the time. It wasn't just about the character's profession. It was about dignity. Audiences connected immediately. Black families saw a reflection of what was possible. White viewers saw a reality they hadn't been exposed to, and industry leaders. They saw a star rising. But Denzel wasn't satisfied. TV was just a step. He wanted stories that mattered, scripts that cut deep. And in 1987, he found one. In Cry Freedom, Denzel portrayed South African activist Steve Biko, a real-life leader of the anti-apartheid movement who died in police custody. It was a seismic performance. Biko's quiet strength, his fearless defiance, and the injustice of his death were brought to life with devastating power. Denzel's portrayal earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor and his first BAFTA nomination. But more importantly, it cemented his reputation as an actor who would use his voice to shake systems. Then came Glory 1989. As Private Tripp, a formerly enslaved soldier fighting for the Union in the Civil War, Denzel didn't just act, he bled. His character was raw, angry, scarred by a country that had stolen everything from him. In one unforgettable scene, he's whipped his back, already covered in scars, but he never breaks. A single tear rolls down his cheek. That tear won Denzel his first Oscar, Best Supporting Actor. He became only the second African-American man in history to win an acting Oscar after Sidney Poitier. Hollywood took notice. But Denzel didn't slow down. He wasn't chasing validation. He was chasing excellence. In 1992, he took on the role of a lifetime Malcolm X. Directed by Spike Lee, the film was a cultural earthquake. Denzel's portrayal of the civil rights icon wasn't mimicry, it was transformation. From Malcolm's fiery Nation of Islam speeches to his spiritual rebirth, after Mecca, Denzel captured every nuance with breathtaking honesty. Audiences were stunned. Critics called it one of the greatest performances in cinematic history. He earned his second Oscar nomination, this time for Best Actor, but lost to Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman. Many still consider it one of the greatest Oscar snubs ever. But Denzel didn't let bitterness touch him. He moved forward. Throughout the 90s, he continued choosing roles that mattered. In The Pelican Brief 1993, he played an investigative journalist opposite Julia Roberts. In Philadelphia, 1993, he portrayed a lawyer defending a gay man with AIDS, a film that challenged stigma at a time when few dared. In Courage Under Fire. 1996, he played a guilt-ridden army officer investigating a soldier's heroism. These were not easy roles. They were layered, flawed, real. And Denzel made each one unforgettable. He brought his intensity to every frame, whether it was drama thriller or historical epic. But in 2001, he would step into the darkness and win. Training Day changed everything. Denzel played Detective Alonzo Harris, a corrupt LAPD narcotics officer who manipulated, intimidated, and terrorized his rookie partner. It was the first time audiences saw Denzel as the villain, and he didn't just play bad, he redefined it. Alonzo was magnetic, terrifying, charismatic, and morally bankrupt. The performance was chilling. The Academy couldn't ignore it. Denzel won the Oscar for Best Actor, becoming only the second black man in history to receive that honor 38 years after Sidney Poitier. That night, when Poitier received his Lifetime Achievement Award and Denzel accepted his Best Actor Oscar, it felt like the passing of a torch. But Denzel didn't just stop at acting. He had more to say, and more ways to say it. In 2002, he made his directorial debut with Antwone Fisher, a deeply personal story about a young black man battling abandonment, rage, and trauma. Denzel played a Navy psychiatrist helping the protagonist find peace. The film wasn't flashy, but it was deeply moving. It showed another side of Denzel, the mentor, the nurturer, the storyteller behind the camera. He continued directing, writing, and producing, always championing black voices and stories. The Great Debaters 2007 showcased the power of education and resistance. Fences 2016, adapted from August Wilson's Pulitzer Prize-winning play, was a masterclass in pain, pride, and generational trauma. Denzel not only starred in the film but directed it as well. His performance as Troy Maxson, a bitter former baseball player turned garbage man, earned him yet another Oscar nomination. And still, he gave everything. Unlike many stars, Denzel never embraced the celebrity lifestyle. He didn't care for the gossip, the red carpet antics, or the attention. He valued privacy, family, and legacy. He often turned down roles he felt didn't honor the dignity of black culture. He didn't want to be rich. He wanted to be great. And Hollywood respected him for it. He became a beacon, especially for young black actors. Michael B. Jordan, Chadwick Boseman, and John David Washington, his son, all point to him as their North Star. In fact, Denzel famously paid for Chadwick Boseman's acting tuition at Oxford University without ever expecting anything in return. Years later, when Boseman became Black Panther, he publicly thanked Denzel for believing in him long before the world did. From awards to accolades, the honors piled up. The Golden Globes, the SAG Awards, the Cecil B. DeMille Lifetime Achievement, the American Film Institute's Lifetime Achievement, the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2022. And in 2020, the New York Times named him the greatest actor of the 21st century. But for Denzel, none of that was the goal. He once said, "Acting is just a way of expressing your soul. If I can help someone heal, if I can give someone hope, then I've done my job." And maybe that's what makes him rare. He never tried to be a celebrity. He became something far more powerful. A standard. To most of the world, Denzel Washington seems invincible, controlled, powerful, unshaken. A man who doesn't just play roles, he embodies leadership, morality, strength. But what if the very image that made him beloved also became his greatest burden? What if the truth is, Denzel Washington has spent most of his life running from the one thing he feared most, becoming his father? Behind the trophies and standing ovations lies a man who has carried trauma like a second skin. It started early with the absence of his father after a painful divorce. Denzel has said little about it publicly, but when he does, the honesty is staggering. "I never really knew him. He was there, and then he wasn't. There was no abuse, no explosive moment. Just the cold silence of someone who should have stayed and didn't." That silence shaped him. It taught him discipline, yes, but it also taught him to hold everything inside. Denzel learned to mask pain with purpose. He became hyper-focused, extremely private, and obsessive about control, not just on set, but in life. Every word, every decision, every role, calculated. He once told a young actor, "Stay off social media. Protect your mystery." But sometimes protecting the mystery also meant burying the wound. And the deeper he buried it, the more flawless he appeared. Yet perfection comes at a price. While Denzel has never been the subject of tabloid scandals or public meltdowns, he's battled intense internal pressure, the pressure of always being the example, the ideal black man in Hollywood. He's carried the expectations of a race, of a generation, of a culture that saw him as proof that we could make it. That kind of pressure doesn't break loudly. It cracks quietly. There were rumors of intense mood swings on set, of moments where Denzel would suddenly grow cold, withdrawn, or overly intense, not from ego, but from the emotional weight he was constantly managing. He poured himself into characters because it was his safest release. Each role was therapy, but it also meant digging through emotional scars repeatedly. Take Flight 2012, for example. The role of Whip Whitaker, a drug-addicted pilot hiding behind charm, is one of his most vulnerable performances. But what most don't know is that Denzel struggled emotionally while filming. Not because he related to the addiction, but because he understood the need to appear strong while secretly unraveling. In many ways, that role mirrored his greatest fear, that beneath the exterior he was still a boy abandoned. Then there's the toll of representation. Denzel has often been described as the moral center of Black Hollywood. But behind that title was an unspoken burden: don't slip, don't show weakness, don't fall. And so he never did, at least not publicly. But insiders speak of the emotional toll, the isolation of being at the top, of not being able to truly confide in others, of constantly shielding your family, your faith, your flaws. At times, Denzel wrestled with his role not just as an actor, but as a symbol. "I'm not perfect," he once said, "but I'm consistent." Even his marriage, long regarded as one of Hollywood's rare success stories, hasn't been without shadows. In the mid-2000s, whispers of infidelity and separation swirled through tabloids. Denzel never addressed them directly. Instead, he doubled down on privacy. But his wife Pauletta, in a rare interview, admitted marriage had been hard-earned, saying, "A marriage takes work, and ours is no exception." Still, they stayed, because Denzel never wanted to abandon his children the way his father did. That alone, he once said, would be my greatest failure. Faith became his anchor. For years, he's spoken openly about reading the Bible daily, about fasting, about seeking spiritual guidance. But even faith at times is a battle. Denzel often says, "You pray for rain, you gotta deal with the mud too." Those words aren't just metaphor, they're confessions. And in the rare moments when he speaks candidly, it becomes clear Denzel Washington is a man who has spent his life building an image of strength not for fame, but for survival. Because if he ever truly unraveled, who would the world blame? Who would they replace him with? He is not afraid of failure. He is afraid of what failure would mean for everyone who looks up to him. That's the tragedy of being exceptional. The higher you rise, the less room you have to fall. And yet through it all, Denzel never asked for pity, never demanded praise. He kept showing up, on screen, at home, in church, quietly battling, quietly building, quietly bleeding, for roles that changed people's lives. Because that's what heroes do, even when they're hurting. In a world that constantly demands performance, Denzel Washington chose purpose. When others chased attention, he chased excellence. And when the spotlight burned too hot, he stepped back, not to retreat, but to protect what mattered most: his family, his faith, and his dignity. There's something rare, almost revolutionary, about a man who could have been anyone, played anything, and lived any way he pleased, but instead chose to stand still in his truth. Denzel never had to shout. He never needed scandal to stay relevant. He never compromised. And because of that, he became more than just a great actor. He became a standard, not just for black actors, not just for Hollywood, but for men, for artists, for fathers, for anyone who's ever been broken and decided to build something better out of the pieces. His silence was never emptiness, it was armor. His intensity was never ego, it was protection. And his greatness, it was never about being better than others. It was about being better than the man he feared he could become. He once said, "Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship." And he lived that truth. Every role, every word, every decision was a step toward growth, never comfort. Denzel Washington didn't just act. He healed through his art. He didn't just break boundaries. He built bridges across them. And in doing so, he gave us all permission to expect more from our heroes, from our stories, from ourselves. As we reflect on his journey, we realize something powerful: Denzel never needed to tell the world he was a king. He just carried himself like one every day. That is the true legacy of Denzel Washington: not perfection, but intention. Not fame, but impact. Not noise, but truth. We want to hear from you. What's your favorite Denzel performance and why did it move you? Drop it in the comments. And if this story inspired you, share it. Let someone know that behind every strong man is a stronger story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story from Legends of Black Excellence, where we honor the legacies that shaped our world.